I'd describe something to Glaze and I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And then I'd hear the little chime that was finished and I'd open up the app and see what it built. And it was like completely what I visioned in my head. Yeah, definitely my coding experience starts and ends with a hello world script.
When we set out to host our first ever Glaze Awards, nobody imagined that the big winner would be a game. But there was no way this incredibly detailed adventure, entirely built on Glaze by Quinn, would make it to the top. I had to have him over for a chat so he could open the curtains and show us how he even managed to make something like this, and share some tips for us mortals that want to become better and better using Glaze. First of all, congrats on winning
Yeah,
the
thanks so
Glaze
much.
Awards. That's crazy, dude.
I know, like I was watching an announcement video and my heart was racing because like by the time I saw like the third and second, I'm like, okay, my idea was kind of weird. It was a game. You started off saying like I was one of the first entries, and then I was like, oh, there's no way, because like mine was quite early on. And then you said game, and I was like, there's double no way. And then saw my name pop up, and I was like, the adrenaline was running for hours afterwards. I was telling all my friends and co-workers, all the people that I annoyed, basically to test out my game and play it throughout the process. So yeah.
The job that you do, like the day-to-day job that you do, does it normally involve a bit of coding and stuff like that? Or was the fact that you were able to build this game something that you couldn't have done without, I guess, Glaze or AI?
Yeah, definitely my coding experience starts and ends with a hello world script. I've always, dabbled and tried to learn a new language and kind of given up because I didn't really have a project. But I always kind of, I'm surrounded by engineers in my day job. I know how they speak. Before AI, I'd describe a concept using, pseudocode, more natural language type of work. And then, once LLMs came around and things like Glaze, once I could prompt something into existence without dealing with the underlying language and syntax, it was amazing for me. It unlocked like a whole new world and, removed that barrier for me.
Amazing, amazing. And you built this really crazy game called The Last Blockbuster, which I think the name is also insanely good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where the idea came from?
Hey, Brandon from BC DeLorean. Welcome to my Blockbuster.
I'd watched this video of a guy who created a Blockbuster in his house. He has like a physical Blockbuster store with like a door you walk through and it's like you're in the 90s again, and that's just in his house. I opened up Glaze and cracked on with some prompts that I wanted to recreate the experience of my childhood going into a rental store. And, I saw a comment where someone was like, oh, this game looks cool, but, I'm not American, so I don't have the nostalgia for Blockbuster. Well, surprise, surprise, I'm also not American. I'm based in Ireland. We didn't have Blockbuster, but we had the equivalent. And, this kind of culture of Blockbuster is so ingrained in me that I'm sure most people can relate, no matter what the name of the video store is. I'd describe something to Glaze and I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And then I'd hear the little chime that was finished and I'd open up the app and see what it built. And it was like completely what I visioned in my head. And I hadn't really described in much detail. It just kind of interpreted the vibes already from my previous message. And, it was adding like CRT effects, overlays and things like that without me even asking to. It just like knew that retro vibe was the vibe I was going for.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, what was the process of going from that initial idea to the way it looks, like the assets in it?
So I generated a single asset in ChatGPT and I was like, I want an exterior shot, cinematic vibes, centered camera looking at a store from the outside. Maybe it's like a nighttime scene. It should feel like you're in the movie Drive or Blade Runner or something like that, where it has like that kind of atmosphere. And then Glaze did this like overlay of clickable elements on the screen. And what blew my mind was throughout the process, anytime I added a new feature, Glaze would implement it, and then it would boot up the game. It would take screenshots of the things that changed, and then it would verify that it's working, and then maybe it wasn't working and it goes back and it changes and fixes it. So even before I had to go back and fix a bug or fix some element that didn't work, Glaze was already on it. And I was like, that was blowing my mind. I was out in another room making a cup of tea, and I just hear like the game playing by itself. And I'm like, what's going on?
Based on your whole experience of building a game, if you were to share some tips with people who also want to build games, or maybe even anything in Glaze, like what would those tips be?
Well, first of all, build something maybe that you would be interested in playing. And then, when you get to certain stages, share it with friends and see how they interact with it. Because, when you're building it, you have tunnel vision and you see how to play it or how to solve certain puzzles. But, I was really surprised when I sent it over to people that their response was sending me the credit screen and, their little high score end screen. They didn't need like any instructions how to, solve certain puzzles and things like that. Don't be afraid to iterate. And, when I started, I didn't know I was going to make a game, and I didn't know how it would end or how you would progress. So I just kept iterating and adding sections, and there was plenty of things I scrapped as well along the way. It's all part of like the creative process. So
the fact that you've been able to do this without being a game developer, I find it absolutely insane. So I just want to say like huge congratulations. We all thought that you definitely deserved to win this competition.
Thanks so much, first of all, and thanks for everyone who like played it and gave feedback. And Glaze is like such a fun tool. I've built so many like mini apps for my own use and my own work, or other games and things like that to share with people. So it's definitely unlocked a lot of, creative itches that I've had sitting in my mind for a long time, but just didn't have the capabilities to code it manually. So it just blew my mind how well it works, and the power behind it is just, everyone should try it.